What's up, gang? Todd back again with another video. Today we're going to take a look at my Amiga 4000. This is something I actually picked up late last year, probably the fall. I believe it was October, November, somewhere in that time period. I played with it for a couple weeks, got it all set up the way I mostly like. As far as getting the system up and running and stuff like that, and getting the OS installed and most of the customizations I wanted. However, that's about as far as I got. I didn't have a chance really to set up any games or a whole lot of programs, anything like that. For the most part, it's been sitting in a spare closet, which is a real shame considering the specs on this machine. This machine has a 68060. It uses a Cyberstorm MK, I believe it's an MK2 running at 50 megahertz. So that alone is a huge investment in this machine, which is why it's kind of a shame that it's been binged, so to speak. It also has an Indivision AGA MK2 scan doubler flicker fixer, and it also has an Xsurf 100 Ethernet card with a USB add-on attached to it. Has 32 gigabytes of solid-state storage via an IDE to SD card adapter. And this machine also has about 144 megabytes of RAM. As you can tell from the video, the machine's kind of on the loud side. That's actually what this video is mostly about. The computer only has one fan in it, and that's the one in the power supply. And you can probably hear over the microphone just how loud that is. I've been meaning to replace it for quite some time, and I just haven't got around to it, so I thought now would be a good time. I'm going to replace it with a Noctua NFR8 fan. This is an 80 millimeter fan and claims to produce 1800 RPMs at 17 decibels. Let me see if we can get a focus there. We'll see. I have my doubts, but Noctua is known for having extremely quiet fans with good airflow. So let's go ahead and power the Amiga 4000 down, and while we're in there, we'll go ahead and take a look and sneak around there and see what's in there, and then we'll go ahead and take the power supply apart and we'll replace the fan. All right, I'm back. We got to our Amiga 4000 here, spun around, got disconnected. Go ahead and take our screwdriver, go ahead and take some screws out. Okay. Tell you what, before we go any further, let's go ahead and take a quick look at what's on the back of the computer. We have stereo audio. We have RGB. This is the 15 kilohertz RGB, the native RGB that pretty much every Amiga has since the original 1000. We have the external keyboard hookup, external floppy disk, parallel port, 25-pin serial, and then the expansion port, usually it just has a plate on it. And depending on what accessory someone would add into their Amiga 4000, different ones might use that. In this case, this one actually has a SCSI, I think it's a SCSI 2 board. My Cyberstorm 060 accelerator has the add-on SCSI 2 board. And this is the external connector for it. You can have internal and external, but this one's got the external port mounted to it, and of course our power supply. One of the greatest faults with these machines is the actual cooling fan in it, which, as you saw how loud it is, but also Commodore screwed up production on some of these units. Normally, the power supply fan should be sucking air into the front of the case, then blowing out the rear. However, there was some of these units that were produced where the fan actually sucked air in. So basically, you'd have hot air or whatever external climate air would get sucked into the computer, and then it would have nowhere to go. It would just kind of linger around there, and maybe it eventually finds its way out through some little nooks and crannies. But for all practical purposes, it would just sit on the inside of the machine. And if you're in a warm climate, like say the Middle East or a desert or South US, anywhere that has warm climate, obviously it's a hell of a problem, because even with this stock 030 or 040, this machine gets pretty hot on the inside. So that doesn't help any. Let's go ahead and take the top off. Slide it back. We'll lift it off. All right, let's go ahead and take a look in here. We have the SIM sockets fully populated, so this machine has the 16, I believe it's 16 megabytes of fast on the motherboard. And then there's, on the accelerator, there's actually a full 128 megabytes on there, so that's why the machine has a total of, I believe it's 144 megabytes of memory, plus 2 megs of chip, of course. Up here we actually have a little battery mod. The original, like a lot of these classic computers from this age, the original barrel battery has a 10-cent leak. So this motherboard, before I purchased this computer, at some point someone had this recapped, and they've actually replaced all the capacitors on the motherboard. And in a lot of cases, they replaced the original SMDs with some of those little ceramic style type of caps. Instead of using your regular electrolytic SMDs, they use like the ceramic style, the solid, the ones that basically don't have fluid inside of them. Over here, this little red board, this is the Indivision AGA MK2 for the 4000, which goes up to one of the free slots back here, which has our video adapter. Next board up is the X-Surf. As you can tell, this board is actually quite long. I mean, it goes almost in entire slot, entire Zora slots, and it has the USB add-on board module. So on the back here, you actually have two USB ports, which I forgot to point out. You have two USB ports and an Ethernet port. On top here, it's a little ghetto. I mounted a little bracket, and this has my IDE to SD card up here. And deep down inside there, which you probably can't see it very well. Let me turn this up a little bit here. I can't really get to it. I have the Cyberstorm MK2. And of course, this machine has an optical drive and floppy disk. Now over here, this is what we're interested in. This is the power supply. For whatever reason, Commodore designed this thing so on the front of the machine, whenever you push this button up here, it activated this lever, this long lever that would then go back and press a little switch attached to the power supply. It's about as convoluted as you can possibly get, but Commodore built it that way. All right, let's go ahead and take this power supply out. In this case, I have 4 screws on top here to remove. This is the original hard drive bracket, and then there's one back here. Okay, power supply is loose. Now we just need to disengage it from this. Okay. Okay, we got the bracket loose. Okay. And there's a plug-in back here where it plugs into the motherboard. See if I can get a better camera angle here. And it plugs into the motherboard here, and of course there's some Molex going off to power some other stuff. See if I can get this out without having to remove everything. All right, power supply should be free. All right, power supply is loose. Tell you what, let's go ahead and just set the 4000 up and out of the way. Let's take a look at this guy. See, we have an 80mm cooling fan. Figure out how to open this thing up. All right, looks like it's just 2 screws holding it together. Oh, what do we have here? This was unexpected. At this point, what I found inside the power supply was a total surprise. Looks like someone took either a Flex or a Micro ATX power supply and just hacked it up to fit it in there. they didn't even bother to attach the ground wire to anything. It was just lying exposed, laying in there. And you can see some of their wires where they just snipped them off, threw some heat shrink over them, and then the other ones that were relevant to the Amiga 4000 power supply, they just clipped them and connected them to the original harness and went on their way. No wonder this thing is so loud. It's got 2 fans in it. It's got the original little fan in the power supply and then the bigger fan mounted to the chassis. And if you watch the video, you'll see me basically sit there and watch me tinker with it. At this point, I thought this thing was a bust. I wasn't sure if I was going to publish this video or not, but since this was kind of an interesting fun, I thought I'd go ahead and throw this up here. I'm not sure honestly what I'm going to do with this. I'm probably going to end up taking this back apart because I'm totally unsatisfied with how this is put together, this hacked power supply is put together. And actually, when I bought this from the seller, I don't remember them mentioning that. I don't remember them mentioning that it had a modified power supply. Maybe they did. I don't recall. But yeah, I'm going to pull this thing back apart sometime and fix it. I don't like the way it's done at all.